because I did not have time. I completely forgot to do my starting soon thing like I normally would, because I went to do a few things beforehand, and yeah, no. But I'm jumping in right now. Also, sorry because if I sound a little lippy, because I have a cold. But anyway, hello everyone to people just joining to, well, it will only be people just joining, and to everyone watching things back on the VOD, whether it's here on Twitch or on YouTube, depending on when you're watching this. Hello, welcome to another stream, and welcome back to Game Dev Sunday, that one little corner of the week where I just take time to do game dev stuff and whatnot, and just, you know, chill, talk about things while I do it and whatnot. Um, yes, I have a cold today. It's I don't know how much it's going to affect things today. I know that ad break is also starting in like a few moments because of how I have things set up with ads and whatnot on the channel. So yes, ads will be literally starting in a few moments. So it'll give me time. Oh, ad break will give me time to get through this tea that I made for myself to try and sort of flush out some of the cold and sniffles, because otherwise I'm going to sound weird for a good chunk of the stream. That, and I need to get myself some more paracetamol anyway, but I will get to that when I can. But yes, ad break starting soon, and I'll see you in a few moments. Gosh. But for the people who don't experience the ad breaks or anything along those lines, hello. And of course, I already said, welcome back. But hoping at the very least that this makes me feel a little less snotty. I don't know what happened. I was perfectly fine, basically the entirety of yesterday. And then before I went to bed, I started feeling a little bit bleh, and then I wake up this morning and I'm all gunked up and sniffly and stuff, and it's not a very nice thing, especially when you have a shift at work the entire day. And I was just sneezing up a storm, which is not really a good thing, especially when you don't actively normally bring tissues places. So you have to get some during your break, and also use like whatever tissues that the store has on hand, like behind tills and whatnot. So yes, it was a bit of a situation. So I may as well throw on the Spyro music right now, just while I wait for things to end with the ad break. And I'm not going to detail too much of things yet, because if I do that and then the ad break ends, then I'm going to have to explain things all over again. So yes, that is my little approach at the moment. I'm just going to wait things out and then sort of explain exactly what it is I'm doing today, because there's one or two things that we need to sort out, if that makes sense. So but I'll get Rider open as well, just so I can... there we go. And to people who are stuck in the ads, welcome back. It's nice to have a nice cup of tea to sort of try and flush through things. But need to get that open for Clip Studio, and I need to get that open for Rider. There we go. We're all sorted now. So, last week, with Game Dev Sunday, I essentially just sat down the entire stream, started going through, like, some ideas for enemy concept art and whatnot. We were doing that the entire time, and we got a fair amount done. I'm pretty pleased with that. In terms of this week, as you may or may not be able to tell by the title of the stream today, I wanted to be a little bit cheeky with it. But in terms of what it is exactly we're going to do, there is a little bit of a glaring problem that we currently have with the project itself. And it's not like a major, like, functional issue or gameplay issue or anything along those lines. I also need to get rid of the sign. I forgot to do that. Right. So, at the moment, if I was to go into the maps, I'm just going to do this from the main menu anyway. I will also probably, for the sake of if and when I make a prototype / demo build, make a version of the main menu and whatnot that essentially doesn't use the saving and loading, so we don't have a demo creating save data and needing the player to load data or create it in order to actually play the game. Because all in all, that would just kind of be a problem, so, you know, that's something that we need to sort out. But, just going through things in its current state, and also, sorry if I sounded louder for a moment there, I was... sorry, just readjusting myself. So, at the moment, we could just run around the level, we could pick up collectibles, we could do stuff within the level space, and so on and so forth. However, there is something that is, like, glaringly obvious that we're missing, and that is an actual HUD. Now... sorry again, like I said earlier, I've been sneezing up a storm today. Like, in terms of how long the stream goes on today, it depends on how I feel. Like, I don't feel terrible, but if this kind of becomes an issue where it keeps distracting me from stuff, then I will probably, like, end things a little earlier than normal, which is not what I want to do. But, again, it depends on how I feel and whatnot. Anyway, so... the one thing that I was thinking about, a while back, and by a while back, I believe, like, a week or so ago at least, there was a thing that I was looking into. There was a thing that I essentially kind of, studied. Where is Clip Studio, my normal folder? So... type enemy ideas. Oh yeah, there we go. Right. So there was a thing that I chose to sort of look into and study a little bit. For I suppose like a little bit during a day 2 weeks ago or so. And that was essentially different types of UI within different collectathon style games. And the reason why I did this is because I specifically wanted to get a little bit of a feel for how different games approached things, and what I found was particularly interesting. So, if we look at my direct inspiration for this product, for this project, Spyro 3, of course you have gen count, you have lives count, you have egg count and whatnot, and these are present to a degree, or this is for the HUD and whatnot, but these are present to a degree. However, they only really... the entirety of the HUD only appears briefly for a few seconds when, say, a gem is collected, or Spyro gains or loses a life, or the level reloads, or when Spyro collects an egg. Like, only in those instances is that when the HUD appears, and then after a few seconds, as I said, it will disappear. So I found that interesting. In terms of Banjo-Kazooie, like, not only am I playing did I play Banjo-Kazooie recently, specifically to, like, start doing recording stuff for it. Also, by the way, take that as a slight hint of what I'm planning on doing for the next video and whatnot. But like, I've been playing it recently to essentially prep for that kind of stuff. But also, at the same time, I did want to get a look at how that game handled its HUD and its UI within the HUD. And sorry. There is something interesting that I found out. So, in terms of how the HUD is displayed, for the most part, nothing is ever really on display for the user to see, or for the player to see, until, for example, the player takes takes damage, in which case only the part of the HUD relating to the health is revealed for a few seconds, and then it disappears again. Same with collecting notes within a level, finding Jinjos, and also finding Jiggies and whatnot. And as I noted under here, it only, like, the HUD itself will only appear when it is needed, and each part of it is individual, which I think is a pretty good thing, because when you're loading, like, a part of the HUD, you're not overloading the user with, or the player with, information at all. You're just, like, sure, I guess it's not overwhelming them too much if you're displaying just the HUD, but maybe they only want to see, like, what is relevant to what they've just done, or what's just happened within the game. So, if they've taken damage, then they want to, of course, see the fact that they've lost health. Or if they've gained a life, then you want to see that, oh, the life count has gone up. If you've gained, like, some of the collectibles within a given space, then you want to see that you've gained the collectible. And while I realize that if I was to do it with this approach, it would take a little bit of extra work, but I feel like it would be very good if I somehow managed to do that, and I feel like it is very much possible to do so. However, I feel like it would require a little bit of legwork and adjustment and sort of tweaking in order to properly sort of make it function in that way. But yes, moving on. Moving on to Super Mario 64, the impetus for collectathon games. Super Mario 64 has its HUD basically active at all times. So for life count and for star count, that is active the entire time. Health will only appear when Mario takes damage or when Mario heals damage. Or heals his health by collecting coins. But that's only when he's taken damage in the first place. The breathing meter will only appear when Mario is underwater. The coin count only appears when Mario is within the level itself. So outside of levels, say within Peach's castle, that coin count just doesn't exist on this persistent HUD, if that makes sense. Which I feel is definitely an approach, and definitely, I'd say, one of the more straightforward ones. You're just displaying the information at all times, and when a thing is updated, it just updates on the thing. It doesn't sort of reveal or hide anything. It just sort of increases or decreases a number, essentially. Or increases or decreases a bar and whatnot. There we go. And then finally, for the last little example I studied, I looked at Super Mario Odyssey. And in order to properly do that, I started a new save file on Super Mario Odyssey, because I had completely forgotten that you could do more than one save file, and I hadn't played the game in over 5 years, I think. Yeah, no, it was over 5 years since I last played Super Mario Odyssey, which is kind of crazy now that I think about it. But in terms of the HUD in that game, like, I'd say it's somewhat minimalistic. Like, you have health, you have, like, general coins and locale specific coins, and then underneath the coin count is where the collected power moons are. And what I find interesting, well, I say collected power moons, I more so mean the power moons that Mario has on hand. Not like a total count, because that total power moon count is displayed on, like, essentially on the Odyssey itself. But whatever ones that Mario has on hand at that given moment. Also, god damn, my nose is getting blocked, and I'm starting to talk weird because my nose is blocked. There we go. But yes, but the power moves that Mario has on hand is displayed under there, and this UI essentially remains active at all times. There's no, like, thing that appears or reappears or disappears in certain instances. This is always there. And I can't, like, it's not essentially counted as one, but I think Super Mario Galaxy also takes a similar approach. It's been a while since I last played Galaxy. I'd need to double check at some point, but as far as I'm aware, it's very much just, yeah, like, there at all times for Odyssey, there at all times for the most part for 64, only present when it needs to be for Banjo-Kazooie, and then it all just sort of appears, disappears when needed for Spyro. Right, so this tea is almost done, so at the very least, I hope this helps things feel a little bit better. Perfect. Anyway, so the takeaways that I took from, like, looking at these things was that, well, there's no uniform standard for how this information is displayed when it's needed and when it's sort of, like, pushed to one side. Ooh, pardon me, sorry about that. Now, obviously, I could essentially take the Super Mario 64 approach and say, oh yeah, we're just going to keep this on the screen the entire time. The user will, or the player will always see that, oh, I have this many, like, fruit. In the context of my project, they will see this many fruit. They'll see that they've collected this many or this much cheese, and they will see that they have this many lives or this number of lives, and so on and so forth. I can tell it's, like, snot in a cold because it is starting to affect how I am able to think, which is not a good thing. It is a terrible thing for me when that happens. So, yes, we're gonna have to try our best to push through this. But yes, there is no, like, as I said, no uniform standard. I could just go with a straightforward approach and just have done with it and just move on to the next thing. However, I may want to give it a shot and, you know, just do the whole individual thing like Banjo-Kazooie. And, like, when the fruit is collected, it reveals the count for fruit, and that hides, like, it disappears off screen after a few minutes. And I feel like it would be such a good way of not only having a nice little, like, transition from, like, oh, it just not being there to, oh, it's here now, and then, like, displaying the information that way, but it reduces so much of the clutter on the screen, and also, in a sense, would keep the player immersed for the most part, I guess you could say. It would, like, it wouldn't really sort of, like, take them out of things, see, like, if they're not having to see the HUD the entire time, then perhaps it will allow them to feel a bit more connected to the experience, rather than just, you know, oh, this is just the HUD. I can see that this is a video game, and all that jazz. And I know it's the case that this is just a video game, this is just a game they're playing, and so on and so forth, but I at the very least want things to feel a bit more organic, if that makes sense. Rather than just sort of, like, have that be there and it's just, oh, these are just numbers, this is definitely artificial and all that jazz. You may get it, you may not get it, you don't have to necessarily understand it, but that is what I'm thinking. But yes, what I am thinking about, oh, whoops, wrong thing, is that we have a HUD class already, but at the moment, that inherits from the HUD actor, and I can't remember if from the course that I'd been studying for this kind of thing, if the HUD also inherited from the widget class that I made custom for the project, or if it just inherited from a HUD. So I'm going to quickly take a look at things in my folders and try and refresh my memory on it. So just a few moments. I think that's program files, that's not Unreal projects. Source. Aura, UI, HUD. So I'm going to open that with Notepad. Okay, so yes, no, this did inherit. This essentially just inherits from regular HUD. Okay, right. I know, now I know I didn't do that incorrectly. Okay, cool. And then if I go into the private folder, go into UI, go into HUD, and refresh my memory on things here. So here we have, of course, the constructor, and then we have, so if the widget controller is null pointer, we create a new object, we create a new widget controller for the overlay. Gosh, right. Or this is get overlay. This is not the constructor. This is get overlay widget controller. I completely forgot. Silly me. Anyway, so init overlay is called. Now I'm trying to remember if I call it from Blueprint. I need to double check. So this is. So init overlay. No, that's not. So. So I might be missing something here. So public pad. No, right. So init overlay is here. Actually, I need to look at how this project, or how the other project is set up, because it's been a while. So if I open, okay, that doesn't help me. It's opening it in Visual Studio, not Rider. Why? And I don't want that to be in my main window. I'm going to throw this over here. Okay, right. One thing I'm also going to have to quickly do, and this is kind of a frustrating thing that I have had to do before, but I'm going to have to do it again, just so I can understand things. I'm going to have to take a look at this other project that I'm learning with, just to refresh my memory on this stuff, because it's been a while since I've had to even step foot near having to sort the HUD out. Oh, gosh. Now, I'm hoping this digging into this other project doesn't take me too long, because, like, frankly, I want to get on with sorting out the UI, but it's trying to remember how information is sent across. That's the problem. Stuck in my head now. Wait a minute. Wait a second. Wait, hold on. Is there anything to do with the HUD in here? No, apparently not. Right. Okay. I thought I had something there. I thought I had something. But that's in here. What about... Gosh. Ow. Right, so looking at stuff. There are things I'm figuring out, but there's also things I'm still a little bit confused on. And I'm still waiting for this other project to open, and it's not done it yet. Which is a bit concerning. Hold on, let me see. So, init overlay. Go to... Never mind. Go to... Find usages. Oh, in the player... Oh, it's in the player character! Okay, right. Okay, right. And TP player controller, get hard. So, get hard. Oh, wait, no. Oh, wait, no. Get hard is a general, it's a general method that's included within the player controller class. Okay. Right. That's what that is. So, looking at the player character, if I close collectible base for now. So, when we're initializing the ability actor info for the player, so first we're checking to see whether or not the player state that belongs to this player is of the ATP player state class. We check that. This continues if this is valid. If not, I believe this forces a crash. Then we initialize the ability actor info within the ability system component. So, and we pass in the player state, which is the owner actor for this ability system component, and then the avatar actor is just the player themselves, or the player character themselves. Then we call ability actor info set in specifically the UTP base ability system component class, which is custom for the project. That essentially does things that it's supposed to do once the ability actor info has been set. And then we set the player's ability system component to be the ability system component that belongs to the player state. And then we get the attribute set from the player state. Now, the thing that happens is first, we check whether or not the player controller that is possessing the player character is specifically of the ATP player controller class. Then, we check whether or not the HUD that is assigned to the player controller belongs to or derives from the ATP HUD. And if it does, we just initialize the overlay. We pass in the player controller, we pass in the player state, we pass in the ability system component, and then we also pass in the attribute set. And then within the HUD, where we initialize the overlay, we check F for overlay widget class, which returns this text if this fails and crashes. It says, oh, for this one, it says overlay widget class is uninitialized. Please populate BP underscore TP hard. And then overlay widget controller class is like overlay widget control. I didn't mean to say controlled, it's supposed to say controller, but you know what I mean. Please populate BP underscore TP hard. Then we have just the general user widget. We create a widget based on user widget, and then we are using the overlay widget class, and then the overlay widget has itself populated using this widget that we just made, but we're casting it to the UTP widget base class. And then we have a set of widget controller parameters, which takes in the player controller, the player state, the ability system component, and the attribute set. And then we get overlay widget controller from this method up here by passing in the parameters. And then this checks whether or not this already has one. If overlay widget controller is null, which it most likely will be by this point, it just creates a new widget controller, sets the parameters, and then we bind the callbacks to the dependencies. And then we just return the overlay widget controller. If it already exists, we just return it here. Then overlay widget controller is set as the overlay widget's widget controller, and then its initial values are broadcast, and then this widget is just added to the viewport, basically. I know that sounds confusing, or it sounds like a lot of, like, stuff spewing out of my mouth, and it kind of is in a way, but all in all, it essentially means that this HUD is all set up and we're able to use it and whatnot. And this other project still has it. It's stuck on 75. I'm just closing it. I'm just going to close it because I've got my answers now, for the most part. So frustrating. So now, if we go back into the project, there are some things that I need to reacquaint myself with. So if we go into, because we haven't really taken a look at some things for so long, so we go into blueprints, we go into player, go into wrap player, because that's what we're using now. I know it's essentially would have been similar when we were starting with the original player, but we're using the wrap player now, so we're doing everything with this. Okay, hold on. I am a bit silly. I have already skipped a step and forgotten things. Okay, no, never mind. Right. So, in blueprints, widgets, I don't believe we do have a HUD yet. So one thing I do want to do is I'm going to close the engine. I'm just going to double check else UE underscore log temp warning text not exist. And this essentially says, oh yeah, if this doesn't actually do this thing, then we're going to say the class based on this doesn't exist. So derived ATP HUD class does not exist. Please create and populate HUD settings in GM, which means game mode. So we're going to recompile again. And we're going to get this little thing ironed out. Now we're going to find out whether or not this is, you know, not set, which it most likely isn't. I don't believe it properly exists at the moment within this project, which kind of odd. I haven't done that, like, entirely so far, but we're going to see. Right. I need to go up and check. Derived, yep, no, it does not exist at the moment. Cool, so we know that now. Now we're going to... I'm going to quickly... Because here's the thing. I know I said I wasn't going to wait for that project to load up, but I'm probably going to need to load it up in general if I'm going to find out stuff. So I'm going to have to try and load it up again. Hopefully it doesn't get stuck on 75% the entire time. Never mind, it's loading. I don't know why it was taking forever the last time around. I have no idea. So, I'm going to quickly check how things are set up with the HUD. And then we're going to go from there. Because I know, at the very least, elements of the HUD are split into different things. Gosh, anyway, whoops. Right, so that did load up. Right, let me check. So UI, HUD. Okay, so the HUD... in this other project, it does derive from that thing. Overlay, WPP, overlay. And then BP, overlay widget controller. Right. Okay, so... okay, cool. Right. And then in UI, overlay. In this other project, the overlay itself has different elements of it. That are most notably separate widgets. So Okay, right. Right, I think I understand things a little bit more now. Right, so I'm gonna reopen the project again. Sorry about this. A lot of it's like me meandering and trying to sort of get my brain all caught up with things again. But we will figure this out together. Even though it's me figuring it out and other people just kind of watching me as I try and figure things out, but technically it's together. So, gonna go blueprints, widgets. I should really organize the widgets folder itself. So, menus. Visual widgets. So the UI fade is one of those, so we throw that in there. And then the HUD goes there. So we're going to go in here, create a user interface. Oh, wait. I'm trying to think. I swear there's gameplay. HUD. Yep. Right, so WBP underscore HUD, which is based off of the TP HUD class. So in here, overlay widget class exists there. Though I think I'm missing something within that class itself. Something, I feel like I'm definitely missing a thing. And this is something that I've most likely forgotten to do months ago. So if I go into Notepad, anywhere. Oh wait, no, never mind. I'm a bit silly. We get a bit silly here. So I'm fine for now until we realize there's something else that needs to be changed. But we're good for now. So we've got the HUD here. We don't have the actual widget, like overlay widget class existing yet, but we're gonna fix that in a moment. So gonna make a user widget blueprint, and we're gonna base that off of our TP widget base. Select that. We're gonna call it WBP underscore overlay. Though I feel like that should go in its own folder as well. So we're gonna move it into the widget folder first, and we're gonna say overlay. Just because I, at the very least, want to try having a bit more structure in my folders. So, I'm gonna throw that there. And in the overlay now, so in the widget base class, there is an event that we called widget controller set, and we call that once the widget controller has been set. For this particular widget. And then if there's anything we need to do, so naturally within the overlay widget, or within the overlay widget blueprint, we're going to have sub widget blueprints. So we're going to probably have one for like cheese count, for fruit count, for lives count, and health, and so on and so forth. So we're going to essentially do that kind of thing. I also need to quickly, again, refresh my memory on things once again, so I'm going to go into the other project. I swear to God, with a cold, my issues with trying to remember things becomes 10 times worse. It becomes even more difficult for me to remember things when I have a cold, because of how much it affects my ability to focus and think and remember things. So, in this other project, according to... Oh wait, I forgot to make overlay widget controller class and edit anywhere. I completely forgot. Okay, right, so... Right, I knew there was a thing I was forgetting, but... What it was, I just didn't realize until now. So, change that, then... In the overlay itself... Right, so we have a sequence. Now I remember. So... Right. Cool, right. So... I'm gonna reopen the... or recompile again. Also, I completely forgot, and this is like, you know, me sort of like randomly rambling on about stuff. I can't believe Nintendo's getting rid of gold points for the Nintendo Switch eShop. I can't believe it. Like, it's such an odd thing to, like, I guess they didn't really want people to just constantly be able to get discounts and stuff, but it really isn't that much of a discount. You only get such a small number of gold points for things. Project is open again. So, now in the HUD, or if we go into the blueprints, widgets, and we go back into the HUD, now we have... Oh yeah, I didn't save... Right, so... Or, to be fair, I didn't set it in the first place. So we have the WBP overlay. We now need to make a blueprint for the overlay widget controller. So, blueprints, widgets... To be fair, I think they're not the widgets themselves, but I will make a folder for widget controllers. So, widget controllers. And now... I will, like, even though it's just, like, throwing the widget controllers in here, I will make specific folders for each one, just to keep them nice and organized. So, overlay widget controller. So, BP underscore overlay widget controller. Now, we do not do anything else here, because everything for the overlay widget controller, or for widget controllers in general, is essentially just handled within the C++ classes for the widget controllers. Okay, so we don't need to do anything here. It's just specifically, we need this blueprint to exist so we can populate this thing here. So BP underscore overlay widget controller is now set. And then within the widget, the overlay widget itself, so we go into widgets, overlay, WBP overlay. As I said, we have an event called Event Widget Controller Set, which is called when the widget controller for this overlay has been set. So if I go back into the code, and if I go into, I believe it should still just be in the UI, widget base, yes, void widget controller set. Yes, set widget controller. Okay, so right, so in TP HUD, so to give an example of when set widget controller is used, when we're initializing the overlay from the HUD, which is what will be happening from here on, we set widget controller by using the overlay widget controller passed in as a parameter. Overlay widget itself is a widget base class, and we don't specifically define, oh, we need an overlay widget controller, or we need just a widget controller in general. We just say, oh, we're just taking in this U object called inController, just so we can use it essentially as a kind of template method. And as long as this is at least deriving from the widget controller class that we made, it can be set as a widget controller. And then once this has been done, this event will be called. And as you may or may already not know, this is called, in this case, for the WBP overlay. So anything we need to have happen now, we can throw it in a sequence. So we have, like, whatever happens for the branch 0 on the sequence, and then what happens on branch 1, and so on and so forth, which is a neat little thing. So and we're going to make it a BP overlay. Oh, whoops. Overlay widget controller, make it an object reference. Get widget controller. That's not right. There is a thing I'm missing again. Let me consult. That's not it. It's in the actual widget class itself. So, widget controller set, blueprint read only, generic reference. So, that's not right. Okay, so I need to go back into the code. Go into widget base. I do not have it set. Right, so okay, so I did not have it as a U property. Whoops. So I'm going to save things in the engine. I'm going to close the engine. Also, ad break starting in a few minutes, chat. Gonna get U property blueprint read only. And at the very least, we only want to be able to read this variable from the code. And the reason for this is because we don't want to do anything with it in the blueprint itself. We just want to read it for doing other stuff with it. So we're going to recompile the code. And it does seem like every so often with my code, it clears up a little bit. And then it just comes back again. And it's annoying. It's kind of frustrating in a way, but it's not the end of the world, but it's still very annoying. It's still mildly annoying. So yes, right. So project is open again. We're going to go back into the project. We're going to go into the WBP overlay again. And then here, going to get... Okay, we can't do that here. That's right. So get widget controller. And yep, there we go. So we're going to get widget controller. We're going to cast to BP underscore overlay widget controller. And the reason we're doing this is because we want to get just a reference to the overlay widget controller, just for later use. And if this cast is successful, we're just going to set this to this. And then at this point, I'm just going to throw a thing here and then comment over it and say note pass into sub widgets. Anyway, the ads are starting, so I will be back in a few minutes, but until then, hang on tight, chat. and welcome back from the ads chat. So, as I was about to sort of go into before ads started, in the second part of this sequence, once we've, gotten this reference for the overlay widget controller, any sub-widgets that we have on the overlay, we pass the widget controller into them as their widget controller, so we just have this one overall widget controller sort of like managing these things, which isn't, a terrible thing. It's essentially what this part of the system is designed to do. Now, I'm going to go into Clip Studio. Again, I'm going to make a new sheet for stuff because I need to doodle and write down my thoughts. So, yes, there we go. Perfect. Also, we lost a few frames there for some reason. I have no idea. But what we would need for, so I'm gonna say overlay requirements. So I'm not sure about this mechanical pencil actually, now that I think about it. I think I'm just gonna use a normal, like the normal pencil for things. Okay, so in terms of our overlay and what we need for that overlay, now, as I said, there's no like strict set of requirements for things, but we at the very least need collectible, alright, so collectible counts. Life counts. And also health as maybe an optional, who knows? I mean, we probably will. Because, in all true honesty, I don't think we're going to take the exact approach that Spyro would and have... Ooh. Sorry? Have a companion that serves as the health bar, because I feel like that would be taking too much at that point. So... just blowing my nose there. Right. I think, as standard, I'm just going to have the health be on the overlay. And now, in terms of how we arrange it, I have a few ideas. So, I'm going to do it in, like, these little mini, like, box kind of things, just to sort of serve as a representation of the screen and whatnot. So, we're going to do that. Now, we're going to say life. Life and then the health. And then on this side we have the collectibles, so collectibles here. And that's one way of doing it, or instead of having life and health arranged like this, if we do this thing here, like so. Sorry about doing that thing with my voice. We have lives here, and then have the health bar or health meter here. And then do a similar thing with cheese on the top and then fruit on the bottom. But I feel like that kind of takes away from being able to sort of display them individually, unless... Now, if I was... Depending on how we orient things, how we bring them into frame would also sort of change. Like, if we were displaying them up here, we'd bring them in from the top. If we were displaying them like this, we'd bring them in from their respective sides. If we were displaying them, if, like... like... we probably wouldn't, but this is just throwing this idea out here anyway, just for the sake of it. So, the last idea I would have, for example, would be to have them at the bottom. So, have all, like, the UI stuff at the bottom, and then you bring them up from the bottom. But I feel like, in my opinion, and this is just an opinion of mine, you may or may not agree, but I just don't think it would look right for this project having the UI sort of hanging out on the bottom. Because it would get in the way of gameplay stuff right in front of the player. Ah, gosh. But yes, I feel like either the one where we bring in the sub widgets in from the side or from above would be best, and for the sake of, like, not trying to be too different, I'm probably going to do the one where we bring in the sub widgets from above, just for the sake of it. So, there is that. So we're going to do that. Right. So, I'm going to go back into the project. So we're going to go to widgets. So health, lives, and we're going to make a folder for collectibles, or collectible HUD, or collectibles widgets. So I will say probably maybe health might be the easiest thing to do here. So, or the easiest thing to start off with, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. Again, maybe I'm just saying this at the moment, and then we get into it, and then I realize, oh wait, it may actually be a bit more simple to do another thing first, for example. But we're just trying to get on with things, if that makes sense. We're not trying to do things absolutely precise and perfect and all that jazz. We're just trying to do things. We're just trying to get on with stuff and all that jazz. So, going to go into user interface, widget blueprint, and we're going to base this off of the TP widget base. I'm going to call it WBP underscore health bar, just for the sake of keeping the naming convention simple. Oh gosh, oh god, that's horrible. That is a terrible cough. Okay, right. Okay, so if I look in my notes and stuff of things I've already done for the other project. Okay, right. Cool. Right, I'm just trying to clear my throat, and it's just... Did I just close the... I closed the project, didn't I? I thought my mouse was on the other monitor. I'm so annoyed. Right, I'm just gonna recompile again. That is... a little bit frustrating. Oh gosh. 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 Righty ho. Okay. Project is open again. Right. So in terms of health, this is really just a simple matter of just at the moment I don't have custom made elements for this. So I'm trying to think, how would I have done this in the other project? Right, I'm going to quickly close that and reopen the other project just so I can refresh my memory. Because of how infrequent my work with widgets is, I keep forgetting, oh, if I'm making a sub-widget for a thing, how would I set it up? Because I know for like a general overlay kind of thing, I would use a canvas or like an overlay kind of thing, and I would put layer things onto that. But in terms of oh wait, no, a size box. Okay, so for the other project, I used size boxes. Okay, no wonder I don't remember how I did it, because I don't, the only times I've ever used size boxes for anything, and it was for those sub-widgets in that other project. Whoops, I did not mean to go into the bloody starting soon screen. Whoops. Anyway, game, blueprints, widgets. I mean, to be fair, I could also just reopen the editor. There we go. So, I'm going to use a size box. And so drag this onto here. Now, for a size box, we can essentially define an override for the width and height. So say, for example, 400 for width, and then say 200 for the height. That's not necessarily what it is at the moment, but it shouldn't be custom on screen. Let's say 400 by 200, just so I have it in those dimensions. I may not necessarily want this. I may want it a bit bigger, but and then we're going to use a progress bar. So for the progress bar itself, I'm going to call this health bar. The fill color and opacity. So at the moment it's percent is 0. So if we fill it up to 1, you can see that as we adjust it, percent is essentially represented on the scale of 0 to 1. But this would be 100%, this is 0%, and everything else in between is like 1 to 99 and whatnot. But at the moment, if we were to just have this be in the HUD, this would appear as blue. We don't want it to be blue, so we want it to be a green, like a very healthy looking green color, I guess. So we're changing it to that. So actually, just fill horizontally and fill vertically. Okay, cool. So if I was to say 600 and then adjust this so it's 600, that's looking a bit better. So if I was to, we're not going to do anything with it at the moment, but we're going to bring it into the overlay. So we're going to go to the overlay, we're going to go to WBP overlay. I'm going to get a whoopsie daisy, a canvas panel. And that will essentially just fill the screen. It will just essentially exist on the screen. Now, if we bring in the WBP underscore, well, it won't appear as an underscore because the underscore is removed within the actual text itself. But if we bring in the health bar, that is a bit bigger than I would like it to be. Okay, so we need it to be a bit smaller. So size box, we want this to be possibly half of this. So 300 by 100, and if we do that, that doesn't adjust yet because we need to actually actually 50 might be better. Right. So things are not appearing as I want it to, so actually if I bring in the health bar now, right, that is way smaller now. Good. So that's a bit more ideal. Okay, so of course the anchor is aligned there. So it's visible, it's volatile. Right. So at the moment, if we were to just click play now, nothing happens because the HUD is not set. We don't have that set for anything. So if we go into game modes, at the moment we only have the temp game mode. And we have the game session, we have the game state base, we have the player controller, the player state, the wrap player, and all that jazz. However, we do not have the HUD currently set to anything. So now, if we set it to WBP underscore HUD, and we click play now, as you can see, our health bar is now present on the screen, which is pretty good. So we now have a health bar. At the moment, it's just kind of constantly there, and we don't want it to constantly be there. But it is a start to essentially say, well, we now have health, or a health bar. Whether or not, I mean, at the moment, that is not affected by any sort of, like, values or anything like that. We will need to fix that at some point, or we will fix that at some point, but at the moment, we're just kind of here with it. Also, just sorting something out. Sorry, a moment. Sorry, just a moment, chat. There we go. Cool, right. So, before we move on any further, if we go into WBP overlay, if you've noticed, health bar is now a variable that we can use. So if we get WBP or WBP health bar, because it inherits from the widget base class that we've made, if we were to set widget controller and connect this and then connect widget controller, we can pass widget controller in as the widget controller that will be controlling it. So this will essentially mean that our overlay widget controller just essentially governs all of the sub-widgets that exist within the actual overlay widget. So, and anything that needs to happen will be handled by that overlay widget controller within those widgets, if that makes sense. Okay, so now that we have our health bar, which is great, there are other things. So at the moment, I'm wanting to make sure that things are lined up before I actually say, let's program like how these function and everything. So if I go back into Clip Studio and look at how we have essentially organized things, I have health in the wrong spot, but that's fine. We can just simply move it over. So I may as well get that done now. Move that over. What's kind of annoying is that if you hold down the arrow keys, it doesn't show it constantly moving. It stays in place until you let go of the arrow key, and then it just does its movement, which is kind of annoying considering the fact that, hey, you may want it to move like only a set distance, and you may want to keep an eye on that distance, but it just doesn't actually... Yeah, it's annoying. So now that we've moved that over, health bar is right there on that position on the screen. I know it will adjust when we resize it and whatnot, and I don't like how it moves. So I need to look at how to sort that out, because that just doesn't bode well. Oh gosh. Right. There also may be something I'm missing in terms of how this all works. So if I was to take this health bar and align it so that the center is done so like this. It kind of annoys me how that works. So, what if I was to change how it's anchored so that I have it like so? I don't know if this actually works or if this kind of messes things up. But what I would like at the very least is some consistency with how things appear. So if I resize the screen now... I can't tell. I guess the thing with, like, alignment and anchors and such is that it's always been a bit of an annoying thing. Right. I swear to God, this cold just doesn't... So much upset. Very sad. Very annoyed. Right. So... I'll mess around with the anchoring and alignment and positioning stuff later. At the very least, generally speaking, it appears where it's supposed to, and that's the main thing that matters. However, what we need to move on with now is making the widget for the lives counter. So that's going to be a small little job as well. So we're going to go into the widgets folder of the blueprints. Oh, the song has ended. I'm gonna go Charmed Ridge. I like this one. Anyway, lives. Going to make the widget blueprint based on the widget base. I'm gonna call it WBP underscore live counter. And we're also going to grab another size box, because it keeps things organized essentially. System on screen, or gonna have a width and height override, and then we're gonna get so we're going to get an image. I don't want it to fill horizontally or fill vertically. I want it to be aligned. And then I need to check whether or not I can still do it. So if I get text and I throw that into the widget, can't accept. Alright, right. So a size box can only have normally one child. So if we throw in an overlay, and then we throw in an image, so that overlay should fill, fill, and then if we center or center it for both its horizontal and vertical alignment, and then add text. We should, yep, there we go, be able to throw a text box or text block in there as well. Text block. The text justification to the left, so if I say ×3, for example, so in terms of the size box, we have a width and height override. I want to go for 100 for now, just to see what that gives us. And also, it's just the default size that we have here. So if we go into the overlay, and we drag in life counters, WVP, that is a bit small. So I'm going to go back into the life counter, I'm going to move the image over so its horizontal alignment is there. I'm gonna make it 40 by 40, or maybe slightly larger. So maybe 70 by 70. No, that might be a bit too much. 50 by 50. 50 by 50 will be good. So we'll throw that there. And then for the text, we're going to increase it to maybe 18, maybe 20. We'll say 20 for now. Right. Oh no, I did not mean for that. And then override the size box size with 200 by 200. So that doesn't give us what we want. So we're going to increase the size of this to, say, maybe 80. Now we're going to do 80 by 80 and see how that looks. Or maybe 100 by 100. Even though that is half the size of this size box. And then we're going to take the text and bring it up to roughly 40. Yeah, 40 sounds about right. Gonna do that. And then back in the overlay, we're going to bring this back in now. So this should... Yeah, that looks a lot better. And I'm going to make the alignment 0.5 and then by 0.5 so that it's perfectly centered. Right. Then back in the event graph, we're essentially going to do the same thing here. So we're going to get life counter. We're going to set widget controller, pass the widget controller in, and then pass that there. Made 2 days ago. Such a bot account. I feel like it's such a frustrating thing having so many bot accounts just like march on up and be like, oh, here's this link, remove the space, please. Which is stupid, really. Like, where do these sad people just find time to have the bots made and stuff? I don't know if there's a thing that I can do to prevent this. I also completely forgot to appeal the muted audio for my stream the other day for Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii, because that will happen. That will happen with that when I do the karaoke, but it will also happen with Kingdom Hearts as well, so I have double dipping for that, so... So I'm just going to quickly do that before I do anything else. At the very least, this is on my second monitor. You don't get to see it. Gosh. Right. Okay, there is a thing I was sending to friend group chat. I was doing that. Right, cool. So, now we have the life counter as a widget appearing on our overlay widget as well. So, we go back into the game itself. That is there. But at the moment, we don't have like any sort of specific elements made for them yet. So at the moment, they're very plain. I do intend on fixing that later down the line. But at the moment, they just kind of exist. They're there essentially just to say, these are here. These just exist. And, you know, these will be working as intended once we get around to sorting out the actual, the implementation for them. So, the next one that we need to sort out is, of course, to do with the collectible counters. And now, rather than making two separate ones, like two separate, actual, things just deriving from the widget base, I can make one that inherits from the widget base, and then the other, and then I can have both the cheese and the fruit one specifically inherit from that class, because say, for example, I may want to do a thing where, based on the image that's set for it, then I want the image to, or the image representing what it's supposed to, be quantity of just be this image or that image. And in a way, this is, in some sense, a better type of workflow anyway. So I'm going to go to... wait, what was it there? Collectibles. We're going to go and make a... Though, to be honest, now that I think about it, I could have done that for the lives as well. I could have said, oh, this could have been quantity widget base, and then said life count, then collect like cheese count, and then fruit count. I could have done that. So hold on. But no, actually, now that I think about it, probably not. Probably not. Hold on. Oh. But yes, so I'm kind of in a... See, now I'm in the dilemma of whether or not I rethink how I did that, or I just move on with how I've done it and just say, oh yeah, I'm making the base thing for the collectible ones, and then do it that way. I think I'm just going to do it like that, rather than sort of stew over things and, like, stress myself out over it so much. So, I'm going to do that instead. So, user interface, widget blueprint, inherit from the widget base, again, as usual, and we're going to say WBP underscore collectible count base. I'm going to call it collectible count base. And then once again, we're getting a size box in... Ooh, whoops. Even though it was doing the thing anyway, but we're going to get a size box here. And we're going to get... Of course, we're going to do the same setup as is with the life counter. So if we're going to open that again, lives, life counter. So, for one, I do want to make this size box a little longer. So I'm going to go full screen. I don't know if it's desired on screen. Oh wait, no, it is desired on screen. Okay, never mind. Or desired. Right, so width and height override is desired on screen. Okay, never mind. Right. Or desired on screen. Either one. Right. So I'm gonna say, in terms of the life counter's width and height override, in the end, was 200 by 200. So I'm gonna say, I'm gonna stick for the 200 for the height override, but in terms of the width override, I'm gonna say maybe 400. Just so we have a bit more legroom. And hey, or for the default, this is what it's gonna be. But hey, in terms of how we do this in the derived widgets, we could just do this as a custom thing. Who knows? I will say this is, make this a variable and say widget size box. That's what we're gonna call it. And then gonna get an overlay. Oh, I don't mean an overlay, I need an overlay. Right, so we're gonna get an overlay. Going to not really do anything with this. This is just the overlay, again, just like before. I'm gonna get an image. And at the moment, of course, this doesn't represent anything. This is just an image. We're going to align it vertically with the center. I'm gonna do 80 by 80. And then I'm gonna grab a text. Going to do the thing here again, have the justification for the actual font be from the right, and then for example we're just going to say times 20,000 for no particular reason at all. And now I realize this is a bit too far out, so we're going to get some padding in here from the right probably. Alright, that's a bit too much. Maybe 100 for the padding. And then again, bringing the font size more in line with how it looks here to 40 would help. So we're going to bring the font size to 40. And that's a bit... That's better, to be fair. That's a bit better. So we're going to reduce the padding from the right a bit. So 75, just so it's a bit centered. Okay, so now we have that. This is where I'm going to dip into the other project, or the learning project again, and I'm going to look at how some of these variable bits were set up, because I know that I'm right in making the size box itself a variable that we can access, because if we're able to access that within the derived widget classes, then we can set, oh hey, this is our preferred size for this widget and whatnot, and then just say, yeah, override this as soon as you possibly can with this new value, rather than using the original one that's set in the base class. Right, okay. So I'm going to quickly look at this stuff while we're in Rider. So it's kind of done like this. This was made a variable. The background was made a variable. Okay, so... Weird. Why is it not? Okay, never mind. Right, now I found it. I found it. So I don't need this other project open anymore. We can do the thing. Right. Project is open again. Right. So, to be fair, I don't need the game mode open. I just need this stuff open. So, if we go into where... Oh boy. I'm hoping I actually didn't... Right, so... Widgets... Collectibles... Yeah, no, we did it. Right. So... I'm not sure about the text itself. I guess... collectible count... Could make that a variable because we'll need to edit anyway. I'm gonna call this collectible image. And to be fair, I don't think we... To be fair, we do need widget size box as a variable so we can access it here at the very least. So I'm going to say in pre-construct, going to make a function. I'm going to call this update size box. We're going to get widget size box. We're going to say set width override. Right, so we're going to get the widget size box, we're going to update the width override, then we're also going to update the height override. So we're going to say set height override. I'm just going to do it like this, because otherwise I just get myself confused over the little details there. But at the moment, we do not have a specific set of variables for this, which is why we're going to do it like this. So size box width, we're going to set that as a float variable, and then we're going to make another variable. We're going to call this size box height. And we're going to get whatever this is set to and set it as the width override. We're going to get whatever this is set to and set it as the height override. I'm going to say by default, based on what we've set here for the size box, I'm going to do 400 and 200 as our default values. So 400 for the width and 200 for the height. Set that, and then we're going to go into, whoops, not there, into the event graph itself. And we're going to call update size box from the pre-construct. So, also, ad break starts in about a minute and 20 seconds. Pre-construct, for people who don't know, essentially, this will happen if any change is made, regardless of whether this is during runtime or if this is right now when we're editing in the editor. So in the designer at the moment, this is just like this. If I go here, where is it? I can't find. Oh wait, I need to make these visible. So I need to make these visible here. So if I do this and go to the designer and go here, Yeah, no. So now we have the size box width and height. If I adjust this right now, as you can see, we now have a size box height of 447.243.209. So that will be useful for when we make our more specific implementations of this widget and just say, oh hey, we want this size box to be this big on this one and this small on this one and so on and so forth. Anyway, ad is about to start, so I'm going to leave you for a few minutes, but we will be right back in just a few moments, so hang on tight. And we're back. Welcome back. Okay, so as I was saying before, we went on the ad break. Now that we have those variables set or available, if we were to adjust things, then we could essentially just say, oh yeah, if we wanted this size box to be these dimensions in this specific implementation, then we can. And that we can just make it so. Anyway, the next thing that I want to set up is to do with setting the image itself. So there is another method that I want to set up. So we're going to call, or we're going to make a function, we're going to call it update collectible icon brush. So we're going to get the collectible image, going to say set style, oh wait, set brush. And we make a slate brush. And what this essentially means is that, oh, we're basically just gosh, Okay, so now I'm wondering. Now I'm not sure. So fill image, slate brush. So actually, I can make this a variable. So if we say collectible icon image, and we make this a slate brush. Oh god, that's terrible. And we make this visible as well. So we get this, set that, set brush. And now, if we go into the event graph once again, we're going to say update collectible icon brush. So at the moment, image size has been set back to 32 by 32. So we go back into here, we go here. And we go to collectible icon image size, we set that back to 80 by 80. There we go, we have it as it was before. So this is useful and all, because of course for the cheese and fruit collectibles, we are going to want specific images for them. And we may or may not want to adjust the size box dimensions for them. So this is a good sort of practice to have in place. So, now that we have done that, we are going to go to WBP. No, wait, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. We're going to go back into the collectibles folder. I was just in here, and we're going to make another user face widget, but we're going to make one that derives from the collectible count base. So we're going to say WBP underscore fruit count. And then we're going to make another one. And we're going to derive that from the same one again. So from the collectible count base, I'm going to say WBP underscore cheese count. So now we have these different widgets that exist. Which is a good thing. So, now, I don't have anything to differentiate these at the moment aside from changing the color of things. So if I go into, say, the cheese count, for example, I could simply go here, go to the collectible icon image, and change the color to a yellow. And then that just becomes what we use for the cheese count for the time being. And then for the fruit count, we go into here, we change the color to like maybe red for apple, or like green for pear, like a limeish sort of like, or pearish kind of green, like here, for the pears and stuff. So we change it to that, and that would be our icon essentially for the fruit count until we get an actual like HUD UI element graphic in here. So at the moment, this is what we have. This is how things are being represented at the moment within our HUD. So now that we've sorted those out, we can throw them into the actual overlay itself. So going to go here, search for a WBP. So now that we have that, we can grab our, I'll say we grab the cheese count first because that's our primary collectible. Gonna have it aligned to 0.5 and then 0.5, so we're gonna have it centered perfectly. Our anchors will be this corner there. Drag it down. So is it? Did I drag it down perfectly to... Wow, okay. I wasn't expecting that. I somehow managed to perfectly drag it down to where it needed to be. Okay. Also, if you've noticed, even though we've dragged this widget into the overlay, we can still change the size box width and height here if we need to. Though I don't think it affects things much here. So if I say 800... Yeah, no, it doesn't. Which is kind of weird. And then essentially we want the same thing to happen with our fruit count. So we'll drag the fruit count in. But I will move this over a bit. Just so we can actually fit both of the bounding boxes for these in here. So I'm going to anchor it here. Going to do a perfect center alignment. Going to push it here. We're going to push it here. Right. Okay. Ugh. Ah. Alright. Okay. So... I don't have the text available as a thing that we can set at the moment, so... Oh wait, no, I do have it as a variable. But I'm going to leave that for the time being. Okay, so... Right, we have... basically the building blocks for our HUD, for our overlay. So we have our life counter, which isn't anything at the moment. We just have a blank image and ×3. We have the health bar, which at the moment is very plain. We don't have anything to stylize it in any way, shape, or form, which is kind of sad. Then we have our fruit count and our cheese count and our fruit count. At the moment, we have no icons for those either. They are plain images colored slightly differently. So again, they are somewhat plain. We will do more specific things for them visually later down the line, as that is what I want later down the line. But at the moment, in terms of just having the basic foundations for the HUD, this is good. But there is something that I do want to address now. So, at the moment, there is no way to essentially say, oh, oh, sorry about that. Gosh. There is no way to basically say, oh, we've picked up a collectible. Bring the, corresponding UI for that collectible down into the HUD for us to look at, to view. Or, hey, we've been hurt, show the health bar, now that it has been changed and whatnot. So, that depends on how we're sending this information from the objects that experience these changes to the UI itself. And at the moment, we do not have a way of sending them, or we are not sending them properly in any way, shape, or form. Gosh. Ouch, ouch, ouch. Right, okay. I also probably should have gotten some paracetamol during that last ad break. I'm going to quickly do that, so I'm going to be right back, chat. Okay, we're back. Oh, I'm back. Sorry about that, chat. Right. Okay. So as I was saying, while having the UI present is nice and all, we don't have a proper way of sending things to the overlay at the moment. And also, I realize I need to actually also set the widget controller for these two counts on the UI. So set widget controller, and then also where is the cheese count? Oop, set widget controller. Right. Okay, so these are all set now too. Now, sorry. Right. The main thing that we need to sort out is how do we get from the information that's merely stored on like the player and the player state, such as like health, collectible count, how many lives they have, and so on and so forth, and how do we pass that from there to the UI? Now, there is a way of doing this, but it's remembering it that's the problem, because it's been a while since I've had to do that for the course that I'm learning from. So if I go into... Right. There we go. Right, that's paracetamol taken. Right, so I'm not sure if I have this sorted out as part of the ability system component for this project. So we're going to take a look at the base ability system. Where are you? There we go. Oh yeah, we do. Right, so... Effect asset tags. That's part of... Hold on. Oh yeah, no, that's F effect asset tags, which is a multicast delegate that is dependent on the asset tags that we have applied and so on. I need to find usages for this. Not where it's... So, effect asset tags. Oh wait, no, that's effect applied, not... This is the only usage apparently. Go to... Where is the implementations? Okay, that's not what I'm looking for. But where do I find... level, so actor, so looking at stuff, apply gameplay effect to spec to self. So wait, that's alright. I don't need widget base open. I don't need the HUD open anymore. Don't need that open at the moment. HUD needs to be closed, and I don't need the subsystem at the moment because I am not using or not making any changes to that right now. So need to refresh my memory. I really should have been, like, when I was following things through with that course, I should have made specific notes on the connections between things, and then I could have picked up things more easily, but at the time I didn't think about it. So go to declarations and usages. UTP base ability system component, effect applied. Where else is it used? That's the problem. Or where else? What is bound to this multicast delegate in so F gameplay tag container? Okay, right. So close the engine. I'm going to open the other project again because this is likely something that I have definitely forgotten about. So well, I say it's likely, I have definitely forgotten about this. So we're just gonna try and find things out, okay? So go into refers. Actually, I could just do this. And at the very least, if I was to open up the things for a project within a new in Rider, then I could just choose to open it in a new window, which is good. So if I go into Right, if I... Right, sorry chat, this is gonna take me a few moments in this other project. I'm just looking through things. Overlays, sub widgets, controller. It's in progress bar, so bind event to health change. So why does it... Alright, on the attributes. Float your value right, so... So apparently, I mean, there are things that I'm missing, of course. So right, there are things that I need to do within the overlay widget controller. As far as I'm aware, I need to start doing things within the overlay widget controller now, so that's a good time to do that. Right, so within the overlay widget controller, where are you? Right, so widget controller, overlay widget controller. We need this first. Oh wait, I already have on health change and on health change. Ah, right. I already did one or two of these ages ago, which is good. Game saved. I'm getting myself distracted. The C++ file. Right. So. Get health attribute, broadcast. Okay, this is where we bind callbacks to the... Right. So, do I have this defined? I do. Right. So, we need to bind callbacks to stuff. Okay, so... UTP attribute set pointer PP attributes equals cast. Oh, whoops! Equals cast. Checked. And I can't remember this. Does it get an attribute set? It's. Right, it's in widget control. Oh, right. Okay, so if I look at widget controller bases H file, attribute set should exist. Yes, it does. Right, cool. Right, I'm remembering things now. So, right, the actual attribute set is defined within this widget controller base. Okay, right. And it can be accessed within, like, the overlay widget controller and whatnot. Cool. So, we go into the overlay widget controller. And then in the CPP file, we're casting check to UTP attribute set, and we're able to access this because this is defined within the widget controller base class. So we don't have any issues with accessing it at this stage. I also realized I left my water in my... Hold on. Got to take some, so I'll be right back, chat. Whoops. Oh wait, never mind, my bag is right here. So I do not need to leave. Cool. Right. So bind callbacks to dependencies is here. We passed this to our specific attribute set that we need to use. Then we say, because I believe ability system component is also set within the widget controller, we get gameplay attribute value change delegate. And at the moment, in the attributes, we do not have a specific thing for... Hold on, let's see. Okay, so we do have a health attribute. So... I'm just making sure I don't have a terrible night with this cold. Making sure I take my medicines as usual. Because quite honestly, I swear to God, like having a cold is one thing, but being an asthmatic and having a cold makes it 10 times worse. Because of how it affects your breathing. So... So, if we go back into here, we undo this and we say TP attributes. Oh, wait, whoops, I did not mean to get rid of that. So TP attributes get hold on. Say property name. So why is it get... Oh, yeah, no, there we go. Get health attribute. I was so confused. I was kind of lost for a second there. So we get health attribute. And then here we add a lambda. And now a lambda is a very special kind of statement where we can essentially... I'm gonna add the semicolon here, so we throw that there. We add this relating to this object as an in function on attribute change data or reference. It's the data that we're passing in, and then we add what we want to call within these curly brackets. So in this case, on health changed dot broadcast, and we say data dot new value. And now what this is supposed to do is, in the overlay widget controller, we have this event here, or we have this event signature called, so it's an F on health change signature called on health changed. It's blueprint assignable. So now, if I close the other project and I recompile this, as long as I've done this correctly, this should work. Right, that did work. Cool. Okay. Also, I'm gonna say, I'll probably, like, after the next ad break, I'll probably call stream a little earlier than usual, because I don't want to wear things out a bit too much, especially considering the fact that, you know, cold, possible sore throat and stuff like that is gonna be a bit painful if I keep coughing, so... I did say it would depend on how I felt, and we've at least almost made it to the 3-hour mark and whatnot, but I'm gonna say, like, ending it a bit earlier today will probably be the best for me, just so I can have a little bit of rest before I go to bed, especially considering the fact that, depending on how things go, it will probably most definitely take me a while to get to sleep. So, yeah. That is my plan, so after the ad break, I'll be ending the stream earlier than usual. Right. So, back to where we were before. I'm going to reopen the editor tabs that we had beforehand. So, even though I don't really need these open, I'm just doing that for the sake of not having to meander through the things. If we go into here, I believe... Oh wait, no, we need to go into the health bar. So if we go into widget, right, so blueprints, widgets, health bar, go into the graph, we go into construct. So if we say, wait, actually, no, I might be wrong here. Hold on. Now open that other project up again, just to... I completely forgot! My brain is so much worse when I have a cold because I can't function! Just double checking. Wait. Oh, right. This is event widget controller set. Right. Okay, cool. So now I know what we're doing next. Right. So So in event widget controller set, we make a new variable, so we're going to call it BP underscore overlay widget controller, because we know that we're going to have an overlay widget controller passed into this. So overlay widget controller object reference. So we're going to have a sequence happen here. So first in the sequence, we're going to get widget controller. Passed to BP overlay widget controller. And then if that was successful, then we just set this. And then using BP overlay widget controller, we're going to get this, and we're going to say health change. So assign to on health change. And this was that event that we defined within the overlay widget controller C++ class. So we could say on health change event, and then whatever we need to do within this health bar, we could just do it right here. So, for example, if we needed to actually update the health, which is what we're trying to do here, then we will do that. Though I am also needing to remember how we get the max health for this one in particular, because we don't have direct access to it at the moment, I believe. So I'm just gonna run a double check just to be sure, because you never know. I might be right or I might be wrong about a thing. So we're just gonna see what happens here. So okay, so according to right, so on max health changed. Okay, so let's change. Then in the UI, right, so I believe, right, so there is just the only coding thing I know I'm immediately there. This is Rider. I prefer using Rider because I like the UI, or I like how the IDE looks a lot better, and also it is pretty quick in some ways. But hi, Flared. Oh gosh. Oof. Set health. Where is max health set? The max health set there. And then safety hide. Set 5%. Hi, just swinging by before bed after a day of one ton. Honestly, Mood. Um, I'll probably be playing a bit of Monster Hunter before I go to bed. Because I won't be streaming for too much longer because I've got a bit of a cold and I want to give myself a bit of a rest before I go to bed because Lord knows that Lord knows I will probably struggle to sleep tonight because of cold. So, never a nice thing to have. I'm hoping it does clear up by tomorrow. I can't believe I stopped playing Vods yesterday, but honestly, I guess it's a case of, you definitely have that 7, I guess it's a case of how are you supposed to know, but, yeah, no, now it's all about that grind, it's all about the high rank grind. I am almost at Hunter rank 100, and I'm getting stuff set up for when the first title update comes out and whatnot, when we get Mizutsune and possibly other stuff being added to the game, depending on what happens, but you just got to Hunter rank 22, you're getting a decent way of, decent, part of the way there. You've been focusing more on game, yeah, no, while I was mainly, like, focused on, well, I'm just going to just passively do things, Hunter rank was definitely my priority, and now I've been focusing on grinding for decorations and stuff, and also trying to make other weapons that I may want to try out. I've been doing that as well, but there are some decorations that I do want to try and target a bit more that will probably help build mainly for Charge Blade. I set up my 45, oh, Jesus, all our weapons, jeez. Well, at the very least, you got your work cut out for you, and you also organize. See, if I just set the wish list, I just throw them on there. You, at the very least, you're meticulous and you organize your stuff. I'm just like, oh, that thing also goes on the wish list, and that thing is also there, and all that jazz. Oh, just by rarity. Okay. At the very least. But you're still organizing it in a way, honestly. Oh, gosh. Right. Ah! So I think I understand what I'm missing from things. So if I throw that there, and then go back into the actual project. So I need 2 floats, health, and then another float for max health. Even though, actually, hold on, I might be, wasn't I doing it in... You grinded out all the last bit of the high rank armor, bankrupted your armor sphere. I need more armor spheres. That's my problem. I've been grinding for decorations, but I need more armor spheres. And I know that the event quest is active at the moment, but my luck sucks, and I don't get too many of the armor spheres with it because my luck is absolute doo-doo. Which is a shame because I would like more of the armor spheres. It would bloody well help. Though, there's probably an easier way of getting them, actually. Yeah, no, actually, good point. I was just thinking about that. And the fact that I've bought Arcveld enough times, I would say, from what I know, Arcveld is probably your best bet for grinding materials when you can. Yeah, high rank stuff definitely does better. Arcveld stuff does good. Especially if you're also wanting to get Ashen weapons as well. But high rank stuff definitely works well. Especially like from the Apexes and whatnot. Ad break does start in about 45 seconds. But yeah. High rank stuff is really good for it. So, in On Health Changed event, we do this thing. You will find out what they are. You will learn of them. They are an interesting thing. Even though I made other weapons better than them, they are pretty cool. Although some people think some of the designs are weird, but I think the insect glaive is my favorite of those weapons because it looks so sick. I like it a lot. I like it a lot. And then I need to refresh my memory. Am I... Whoops, wrong one. I can't remember. Is it in the player state or is it in... Ah, gosh. Good lord, good lord. Gosh. Right. So, as far as I'm aware, I do want to, because I think, as far as I can remember, we do have the enemy damaging the player, I think? So, on health changed, event, let's say print, string just to be sure. Okay, right, it does. Cool. So, back from the ads, but yeah, I'm probably gonna head off because I need to be up and set. Understandable. I'm probably going to stop things here for today because, as I said, I do want to get a little bit of a rest in before I go to sleep because I definitely know that tonight's going to be difficult with the cold. But yeah, thanks for stopping by, Fled, and to everyone else here today and everyone watching things back, whether it's here on Twitch or on YouTube, depending on when you're watching this. Thank you ever so much for being here. I really appreciate it. I should probably add a custom event for this as well while I'm at it. Next stream will be tomorrow. We'll be returning to Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep level 1. We got to Neverland the last time. We got to continue and hopefully finish Ventus's story during that stream, depending on how things go, but we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, thank you ever so